It's time for another 2022 Nebraska football opponent preview, and now we're talking about the Indiana Hoosiers. 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 I hate Indiana. I really do. I'm just going to start this out with that. I didn't think this was possible. You know, before we joined the Big Ten, I thought, why do these teams hate each other so much? And then, you know, that you had that kerfuffle, I think it was in 2019, where apparently in some back room somewhere, Scott Frost complained about having to play Ohio State 6 times before he played Indiana twice. And apparently Tom Allen, the head coach at Indiana, took this as a giant insult, even though Indiana isn't anything like Ohio State. They played the disrespect card, and it really bothered me a lot. I mean, you made that big of a deal out of something. Mark D'Antonio did the disrespect thing much, much better, mostly because he always looked so cranky. And Tom Allen looks like he looks like a governor of a really bad state. Not that Indiana's a bad state. I don't really know that much about Indiana. But like if you were doing a movie and Tom Allen was a character in it, you'd go, that guy's owned by the bad guys right there. That's what that guy is. So that's Tom Allen, their head coach. Indiana football is comparable to Nebraska basketball. Really. They've had some good players over the years. They've only won 2 Big Ten championships in their entire decades of the Big Ten football thing. 1945 and 1967. 1967, they were co-champs. And get this statistic. They have been ranked in the AP poll 6 times at the end of the season, 6 times throughout their history. 67 weeks total. Compare that to Nebraska football, which has been ranked 48 times in the final poll, and a 730 weeks total. So Indiana football, not good. Now, the thing about that whole kerfuffle thing is then Indiana ended up beating Scott Frost, which made Scott Frost look like even a bigger wiener than Tom Allen. So they're both kind of big wieners, and not in a good way. Indiana, though, Indiana under Tom Allen, they've gone to 2 bowls. They've lost them, as Indiana is wont to do. But in 2020, they kind of had a magical season. They went 6-2 in the pandemic year. Remember the whole thing about them and Ohio State? They lost to Ohio State 42-35. But Ohio State only played 5 games, and everybody's like, well, Ohio State didn't play enough games to get into the Big Ten championship. And then the Big Ten's like, it's Ohio State, for God's sakes. Whatever, Indiana. And then Indiana was mad, so they went out and lost the Outback Bowl. They removed their Big Ten logos from their uniforms, and then Tom Allen said, no, we just put our own Love Everyone Something logo in their place. 2021, they were back to being Indiana, and they went 2-10. And I mean a really bad 2-10. They had a lot of injuries. I mean, just like crap tons of injuries. So it was it was a really disappointing season for them. And we're going to see what happens in 2022 if they can turn it around. Interesting tidbit, Indiana actually owns the series against Nebraska 10-8, which makes it even more interesting that Scott Frost lost that 2019 game, because he would have tied the series and we wouldn't be behind Indiana. Small tidbit for you. Tom Allen is in his 6th season with a 26-32 record. They have 12 returning starters, and they have released a depth chart with their fall media guide. Although if you actually look at the depth chart, there are a lot of ors in it. You know, like this guy or that guy or this guy or that guy. And it's not really a depth chart. It really becomes a list of names. Let's look at the quarterbacks. Michael Penix transferred to Washington. He had a season-ending injury in 2021. He was a very good quarterback for them, but he is gone. Who is not gone is a new guy coming from Missouri, a Connor Basilek. He's a transfer from Missouri, 5,058 yards, 23 TDs, 17 interceptions, and 20 career starts. So a guy with experience. He was also the SEC Co-Freshman of the Year in 2020. So, you know, doesn't look like too bad a talent coming in. Then you got another guy, Jack Tuttle. He is the redshirt senior. He started 2 games last year before he had a season-ending injury. So quarterbacks, They have a few, but I think it really comes down to, is this new guy coming in going to be able to run the Indiana offense and score points? And I think that's paramount for them, but we'll get to that in a bit. Running back, Sean Shivers, transfer from Auburn, had 10 starts at Auburn, 1,020 yards, averaged 5.1 yards per carry. Then they have Josh Henderson, a guy who's transferred from North Carolina who had 209 yards in his career there. And Jalen Lucas, a newcomer, freshman guy. We move to receiver. And it looks like, they have, well, number one, they have a lot of oars in their depth chart at receiver. For example, Javon Swinton, who had 15 receptions for 115 yards and 1 TD last year, or Donovan McCulley, who moved from quarterback to wide receiver this year, or Anderson Kobe, who transferred from Tennessee. And then you have another, the other wide receiver position is DJ Matthews, who had 13 receptions for 165 yards last year, or Emery Simmons, who had 11 for 243 and 1 TD. So when we look at their wide receivers, they've played. They don't appear to have some guy that everybody goes, oh, not that guy. Kind of like when you looked at Purdue and you went, Rondale Moore. Offensive line, 3 starters return with 47 combined starts, including center Zach Carpenter, who started 2 games at Michigan in 2020. So on the offense, you're looking at like a lot of newcomers, a lot of people that have to fit in positions, fit together and things, and of course the quarterback position that is, I think, really key, like I said, to Indiana's team and how much success they're going to have. On the defense overall, 7 starters return. Defensive line, they have DeMarcus Elliott, Alfred Bryant, a guy who's transferred from Cal, J.H. Tevis, and then senior James Head, who was injured half of 2001 but started in 2019 2020. So the defensive line, again, do you recognize any of those names? Again, not like Purdue, they usually always have a guy in the defensive line that's going to be a draft pick. Linebackers, all Big Ten linebacker Micah McFadden has gone to the NFL, was a big part of their team. Senior Cam Jones is the weak side linebacker. He's the leading returning tackler with 64 tackles. They have Miami transfer Bradley Jennings, 68 tackles and 11 career starts for the Canes. So, if he played on the Canes defense, he's probably got speed. I mean, if you start 11 games for the Canes, you pretty much have to have speed to play on that defense. The defensive secondary looks like it might be the strongest position group on the Indiana team this year. Tywan Mullen was a 2020 first-team All-American before he was injured in 2021. He's on the Bednarik watch list this season, and a key to their secondary, along with senior cornerback Jalen Williams, who led the secondary with 11 pass breakups last year, and I don't think he got injured. Probably why he led the team in pass breakups, was one guy could actually stay on the field. Senior safety Devon Matthews, second leading returning tackler with 55. An Ole Miss transfer, Jonathan Haynes, who had 86 tackles and 17 starts for the Rebels. Again, defensive secondary looks pretty decent. I mean, if everything comes together with the transfer guy, the guy coming back from injury, Mullen. Here's what you look at Indiana. What is Indiana going to be this year? I don't think they're not going to be at the Big Ten, top of the Big Ten East. I think that they're probably good enough to make a bowl game. Unless they get the injury bug 2 years in a row, they should be a bowl team. Is Nebraska going to beat them when they meet October 1st? Well, we're not to that point yet. Quarterback, like I said, is key. I think they have some depth and experience, and again, given the injury situation, if they're not plagued with it, they're going to be better than their 2-10 record. How much better? Let's say 6-6 probably. I haven't looked at their schedule, but that's how I feel about Indiana. And if they get to a bowl game, Tom Allen will be safe, and he'll be a cheesy-looking guy for years to come for Indiana. And I started out saying I hate Indiana football, and You know, it's kind of like hating Liechtenstein, or Liechtenstein, whichever one it is. And how is that possible? But it's true for me. October 1st, Big Ten football, Nebraska versus Indiana. What do you guys think is going to happen? John Johnston, CornNation, please subscribe to my channel. Take care of yourself. Go Big Red. I said I was going to get through these opponent previews. I didn't say they'd be any good.